For spine-chilling true horror tales, unexplained nightmares exposed from the haunted shadows, Jessica's heart raced as she pulled into her driveway, the flickering street lamp casting twisted shadows across her small, cluttered home. The night air felt thick, alive with hushed whispers and creeping dread. She could swear she felt eyes watching her from the darkness. She checked the rearview mirror, half expecting to see something lurking behind her. After all, everyone knows something sinister resides in the stillness, especially here in this rundown Midwestern suburb where hope seems to slowly decay. Her two children, Mia and Jake, were already tucked in bed, their innocent breaths filling the silence with an unsettling kind of peace. But as Jessica closed the door, an icy chill washed over her. The house felt off, the walls seemed to constrict, the shadows impossibly deeper. She quickly shook it off. Nothing a simple night at the diner wouldn't remedy. Yet deep inside, she knew, nightfall brought a haunting unpredictability that made her stomach churn. Strange noises echoed through the house as she tried to distract herself with mindless chores. A creak here, a thud there, each sound reverberated in her bones. She convinced herself it was just the house settling or a loose old pipe, but they felt like warnings. And then came Jason, the new neighbor. With his bright smile and the wholesome gift of cookies, he eased her anxieties, if only for a moment. Initially, she thought maybe he'd help, perhaps he could alleviate some of the burdens pressing down on her. His constant presence soon became unnerving, though. Something about his long, intense silences and the way he watched her children set her on edge. How could a mere neighbor create such a suffocating atmosphere? She tried to tell herself she was overreacting, but whispers of a malevolent spirit that preyed on struggling families flared in her mind. The nightmares she had long buried as childish tales resurfaced, creeping like shadows at the edges of her thoughts. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. One night, while chasing away the unraveling knots in her stomach, Jessica passed by Mia and Jake's room. Instinctively, she stopped at the door, the dim glow of their nightlight flickering uneasily, shadows dancing against the walls. Through the crack, she saw them whispering, their faces lit by the eerie glow. "Mama!" Jake's voice suddenly broke the silence, laughter bubbling up but twisted in a chilling way that sent shivers down Jessica's spine. She pushed the door open gently, and the laughter stopped, eerie stares meeting hers. Jake held up a drawing of a figure with hollow eyes, a brutish shadow lurking over a distorted house. Jessica's heartbeat thundered in her chest as dread clawed at her insides. The next day, his drawings multiplied on the fridge. Each one was a grotesque depiction of something dark and sinister that Jessica couldn't understand. She felt a pull to Jason but also repulsion, a magnetic dread that kept her on edge. As days turned into nights filled with whispered secrets and hollow laughter, she wondered if she was truly losing her grip on reality. Disturbing memories of her past, achingly familiar, flicked through her mind. Jason's smile twisted and melded with deeper fears. Was he just a neighbor? Or was he part of the darkness consuming her world, a strand weaving itself into the fabric of her life? As she stared out at the flickering street lamp, she saw him again standing there, an unsettling smile tugging at his lips as he murmured her children's names. Into the night. Panic gripped her like ice. Who was he really? What did he want? The shadows whispered, and Jessica could feel the sinister truth edging closer, knowing that she must confront the darkness before it engulfed everything she held dear. Jessica barely slept that night, tossing beneath her thin sheets, haunted by a cacophony of her own racing thoughts. The silhouettes formed by the flickering nightlight in the hallway felt like a crying betrayal, revealing secrets she wished she could bury. Each time she shut her eyes, images of Jason's smile twisted into something grotesque, shadows stretching and curling around her insides, pulling at her sanity. Morning came with a heavy fog, yet the sun struggled to break through. Jessica's heart sank at the sight of the wispy gray draping itself menacingly over the neighborhood. It felt like a shroud. She made her way to the kitchen, each step echoing with dread. She caught herself glancing out the window desperately, searching for signs of life but only found an oppressive stillness. It was too quiet, too empty. Mia and Jake joined her at the kitchen table, their faces pale and eyes wide. "Mama, we don't want to go outside," Jake said, his voice shaky as he shuffled a crayon in his small hand. Jessica felt her chest tighten. The drawings covered the fridge, a grisly gallery of monsters. Each one seemed to take on a life of its own, the shadowy figures glaring back at her with hollow eyes. "What do you mean?" she asked, trying to mask her concern. "You need fresh air, kids. Don't you want to play?" "But the man across the street, he looks at us funny," Mia chimed in, her small body shivering. Jessica's breath hitched in her throat, all colors draining from her world as their innocent words sent a jolt of dread through her. Why had she ignored the intuition clanging in her mind? She poured cereal, but her hands trembled violently, spilling the oats everywhere. "Look at your drawings. That's just your imagination." She forced a smile, but they mirrored her unease instead of her reassurance. As the day dragged, Jessica found herself pacing, unable to contain her thoughts. What harm could a neighbor possibly pose? Yet, something gnawed at her. She spotted Jason's figure through the window, standing with arms crossed, watching her home with an unsettling gaze. The morning fog thinned as if retreating, but she felt trapped under his watchful eye. Jessica stewed in disquiet, wrestling with her rising anxiety. Out of desperation, she decided to confront Jason, believing he might offer a logical explanation. She pulled on a jacket and stepped outside. The chill bit her skin. There he was, as if he was waiting for her, a smile plastered on his face, wide and almost forced. "Good morning, Jessica," he greeted, his voice smooth, but it felt like ice plunging into her veins. "I noticed your kids having tea. Come out to play." He moved closer, and the sudden motion made her heart race. "Yes, they're just resting," she fumbled over her words, acutely aware of how nervous she sounded. "Why do you keep staring at them?" His smile didn't falter, but his eyes glinted in a way that made her skin crawl. "Kids are so much fun to watch. They remind me of simpler times." A chill wrapped around her soul. His laughter felt hollow, it echoed in her bones. "Have you seen any odd things around here?" Her voice was barely a whisper as she tried to gauge his reaction. He chuckled, but it sent tendrils of terror creeping into her heart. "Sometimes the mundane is filled with stories, Jessica. Just look at your children's art. Imagination like that can attract certain attention." Those words hung in the air like a death knell. Jessica's skin prickled as a wave of understanding washed over her. What had she unleashed? Those drawings weren't just childish scrawls, they were warning signs, pleas foreshadowing something sinister. As she stepped back, Jason's expression shifted, eyes narrowing slightly. "You're worried. Don't be. I'll take care of the things lurking in the darkness. I can handle it." She shouted, but the bravado rang false even to her ears. His smile returned, but it didn't reach his eyes. I know." Turning away, panic surged through Jessica. She didn't feel safe anymore, not with him watching, not with those drawings taunting her. Shadows pressed close, and she realized she was only beginning to scratch the surface of the terror surrounding her. What had she awakened in her children's innocent imaginations? How long before it crossed the line from figment to reality? The familiar sounds of laughter faded, and a far darker noise began to seep into the edges of her thoughts, a whispering that promised to drown her family in darkness. Later that night, while hiding under the covers, she heard it, Mia and Jake's low voices mingling with the shadows in their room. Laughter again, but not the innocent kind. It sent ice through her veins, a twisted rendition that was too familiar, too chilling. As she crept to the door, she heard Jason's voice float through the walls, words of comfort wrapping around her children like a noose. Was he trying to protect them, or was he drawing them deeper into despair? With trembling hands, she gripped the doorknob, feeling the weight of the darkness behind it. What would she find on the other side? What were her children becoming in that room of shadows? She took a deep breath, ready to face the sinister truth. Jessica turned the doorknob slowly, dread coiling in her stomach like a serpent. The door creaked open, revealing the dimly lit room where her children slept. Shadows danced across the walls, morphing and twisting like some living nightmare. The air was thick, heavy with an atmosphere that felt alive. Peering inside, she saw Mia and Jake huddled together on the bed, their faces illuminated by a faint glow emanating from the corner. It was their drawings, spread across the room like a jigsaw puzzle of horrors. "Mama." Mia's voice trembled, breaking the silence. "We were just playing." "Playing?" Jessica whispered, stepping cautiously into the room. Jake sat up, his eyes wide, pupils dilated with fear and excitement. "With the man, Mama. He told us stories. About the monsters." Her heart raced. "What monsters?" Jessica demanded, her voice rising as she tried to process the madness unfolding in front of her. "The ones we drew," Mia exclaimed, pointing at the fridge drawings. "He said they could come alive." Panic pulsed through Jessica. "Who told you that? Did you see him?" Both children nodded, and it felt as if the walls were closing in. A cold sweat formed on Jessica's skin. No, get away from the drawings." Suddenly, a laugh, Jason's laugh, echoed through the room, echoing, taunting. It wrapped around her like a shroud. She turned quickly to the window but found only the gray veil of fog outside, thick and foreboding. "What did he say? What does he want with you?" Jessica's eyes darted wildly, searching for a flicker of sanity in the chaos. "Don't you remember, Mama?" Jake said, his voice eerily calm. "He came to tell us he could make our dreams come true." Arctic fear froze her solid. "Dreams? Your dreams? What's that supposed to mean?" "He said if we drew them well enough, they could be real. Just like him. He wanted to help us." "No." Jessica could barely breathe. "I don't want him helping you." "Where is he?" Mama Mia's small hand tugged at her shirt. "He's right behind you." The air turned electric. Jessica whipped around, her heart hammering in her chest, and there stood Jason, silhouetted against the doorway. His eyes gleamed, an unsettling smile plastered across his face. "Why, Jessica, did you think I'd leave after such an interesting conversation? We have so much more to discuss." Terror surged through her. She stepped back, pulling her children closer, instinctively shielding them. "Get away from them." "Why?" "I'm their friend," he cooed, stepping forward, the shadows bending to him like they were alive. "Children need guidance. Just think of the adventures we can have." Jessica felt the walls tremble, the shadows swirling, almost eager. "You don't belong here. This isn't your place." "Oh, but there's magic in your children's art," Jason said, voice dripping with amusement. "It's a doorway to something beautiful and terrifying. They see things you can't. Just look at their imaginations, Jessica. They draw the things of nightmares, and those nightmares want to play, too." In a desperate sprint, she grabbed the drawings from the floor, ripping them one by one. "Stop. You can't have them." Each tear felt like a battle against a mounting force, but with every ripped paper, she could almost sense the darkness retreating, shadows shuddering in despair. The room grew colder as Jason's smile faded, frustration twisting his features. "You're making a grave mistake, Jessica." Suddenly, the fog outside thickened, shrouding everything in darkness. Jessica felt icy fingers wrap around her throat, an otherworldly chill threatening to pull her into the shadows. "Mama!" Jake screamed, clinging onto her arm. The air crackled, the walls shifted, and with every pulse of darkness, her children whimpered. "Let go of them!" Jessica shouted, her heart pounding, terror clawing at her throat. Instantly, she felt the grip loosen. The fog began to recede from her vision, and Jason stepped back, retreating into the shadows, his laughter reverberating through the fading light. "This isn't over, Jessica." They called for me. She felt a shiver of dread run down her spine as the echoes of his laughter mingled with the muffled cries of her children. As she huddled them close, Jessica realized she would have to confront Jason and whatever darkness he had awakened. Because now, the true nightmare was just beginning to unfold. And it was no longer just her imagination creeping into reality, it was something far worse. This time, the inky shadows had taken root in the very heart of their home. Would she be strong enough to sever the ties before they were lost forever? The shadows lingered, thickening in the corners of the dim room as Jason's presence faded, yet Jessica could still feel him, a chilling weight on her chest. The trickle of fear coursed through her veins, freezing her to the spot as she glanced at the drawings strewn across the floor, their surfaces glistening ominously in the faint light. They weren't just creations, they were potent symbols, portals even. The thought sent a tremor of dread through her. "Mama," Jake whispered, nudging her arm. "Is he gone?" Jessica forced a smile, her heart racing. "Yes, sweetie, he's gone." But she knew it was a lie. The air in the room crackled, a reminder of the evil that had just invaded their sanctuary. She held Mia and Jake close, their fragile bodies trembling against her own. The innocence of their giggles echoed in her mind, contrasting sharply with the lingering terror of Jason's laughter. "Let us get out of here," she said, her voice stealing with determination as she pushed the fear down, burying it deep. She coaxed her children from the bed and back toward the hallway, glancing back over her shoulder. The darkness seemed to snicker, curls of shadow entwining around the remnants of their innocent as they stepped into the hallway. The eerie quiet seemed alive, creeping around them like a watchful predator. Jessica's footsteps echoed along the wooden floor, each creak amplifying her anxiety. She could almost hear the whispers, taunts nestling into her ears. Did he really want to help? Help her children? There was no solace in that thought. "Mama, I think we should go outside," Mia suggested, her voice small and wavering as if she were testing the waters of safety. "No, not outside." The fog. Jessica's breath stilled as she recalled the dense mist outside, swallowing everything in its path. "We need to find something, anything that will help us." Suddenly, a crash resounded from the living room. Jessica's heart raced. It was a sound that shattered the fragile peace, a thunderclap reverberating through her skull, shaking her resolve. She turned to her children, fear reflecting in their wide eyes. "Stay close," she commanded, and they nodded, gripping her hands tightly. They crept through the house, shadows swirling menacingly around them. As they approached the living room door, the air became thick as if awareness itself had glided over them. Jessica pressed her ear against the door. The house was unervingly quiet now, lulled into a state of waiting. With a deep breath, she flung the door open. The room was a disaster, a coffee table overturned, cushions tossed aside, and the curtains flapped wildly as if caught in a tempest. But it was the center of the room that froze her blood. The drawings from their fridge, torn apart, were now alive on the walls, animated chaos wrapping around them like serpents. Glow-in-the-dark ink metamorphosed into slick, hungry mouths, eyes wide with madness as they twisted and curled. Mia gasped, stepping back. "Mama, what's happening?" Jessica swallowed hard. "It's just art, just imagination," she said, voice faltering, though she could feel her courage breaking under the weight of the reality spilling from the artwork. But perhaps it wasn't just imagination. Perhaps the drawings were an unwanted invitation, an offering to things they wouldn't want to think about. From the wall, an abyss stared back, a swirling dark vortex pulsating rhythmically, echoing the laughter she had just heard. The familiar voice called to her, seducing and sinister. "Jessica," it whispered, slithering through the air, curling around her consciousness. "Join us," her pulse thundered in her ears. "No!" She screamed, grasping her children's hands tighter, her voice a raw sound in the chaos. "You will not take them." The vortex appeared to swell, shadows pulling and tugging, as if reaching for the two innocent souls beside her. "Grab the drawings!" Jessica shouted, desperation igniting her fight. "We need to destroy them. Now!" As the kids hesitated, she yanked them forward, lunging for the frayed edges of the twisted nightmare plastered across the wall. They grasped at the edges, pulling with all their might. But the laughter rang louder, sinister and taunting. "You think you can sever the bond? No, my dear, it's far too late." In that moment, everything shifted. The living room seemed to fold inwards, drawing her into the depths of its dark embrace. Just as she felt herself slipping, a sensation of weightless panic enveloped her. She steadied herself, anchoring her voice to reality, her children's faces etched in her mind. "Hold on." And then, just as the darkness was about to claim them, she let out a primal scream, summoning every ounce of love and desperation, each heartbeat fueling her strength as she tore free the last remnants of their twisted art. The room exploded with light. But as the brilliance clawed at the dark, uncertain shadows began to gather once more around the edges. As she took a step back, the shadows whispered promises of more nightmares yet to come, and then she realized, what if the drawings had merely been the beginning? What if the true horror lay hidden beneath the surface, waiting for them to dig deeper? They weren't safe yet. Not by a long shot. The light flickered, setting the shadows in a frantic dance, flinging their darkness against the walls with an appetite that felt predatory. Jessica stood rooted, heart pounding against her ribs, as she watched energy shift around her, a relentless pulse. She turned to her children, their faces wide with fear and confusion. "Mama?" Jake's voice trembled. "What is happening?" I don't know," she murmured, clenching her jaw against the uncertainty. She crouched down, eye level with them, attempting to mask her own panic. "But we need to stick together. No matter what." The glow of the drawings faded abruptly, the dark void catching light and swallowing it hungrily. A low hum emanated from the walls, vibrating up through the floor like an angry beast awakening. Jessica's instincts screamed at her to flee, but the children needed her. She couldn't lead them into the unknown just yet. The laughter, once echoing in the air, returned, this time more tangible, wrapping around her like smoke. "Jessica," it whispered with a sickly sweet tone, "you cannot escape what you invited in." "Shut up." She spat, her voice ignited with a fierce defiance. But the laughter only escalated, sweet yet malevolent. As the shadows twisted tighter, she could see old, familiar faces forming and rippling. Friends and family she had loved showed through the dark, mouth stretched into eerie grins, eyes void of warmth, replaced with a glistening hunger. "Mama," Mia squeaked, nails digging into her mother's flesh as her grip tightened. "They're not real, of course they're not," Jessica hissed through clenched teeth, fighting back the dread. "They're just illusions. Just tricks." She waved her hand in frantic dismissal, but doubt clawed at her mind like a wild animal. The pulse of the room quickened, and with it, the faces morphed and twisted, transforming into something grotesque and alien. The very air breathed desperation in a thick, suffocating fog. "You called us," the echoing whispers coiled in, "you drew us. You opened the door only if we let them." Jessica shrieked, her resolve hardening. "We can shut it. We can end this." She tugged Jake and Mia back as she staggered toward the wall, filled with rage-fueled determination. The vortex grinned wider, devouring the light with a ravenous appetite. "Listen to me," she pleaded. "We need to destroy everything. Help me." And as she grasped the nearest drawing, she noticed it transforming in her hands, twisting into something alive and vile, shrieking for her to stop. She cast it to the floor, stomping on it with every ounce of power she had left. The shriek reverberated, ricocheting off the walls, filling her ears with agony. "You will pay." The wall's chorus shrieked, now a cacophony of voices warped in sorrow and hatred, revealing lifetimes of pain. Mia and Jake, their eyes wide and wild, grabbed papers from the floor, all with frenzied energy, tears falling down their cheeks. With each drawing they tore, the laughter shrieked in protest, the shadows retracting, pulling into a tight knot of fury. "What is this?" Jessica yelled. "No. We need to leave now." Like bats at dusk, the remaining darkness fled, tightening around them, but there was still the weight of the laughter hanging thick in the room like old smoke. Suddenly, silence fell. The emergency lights flickered back on, revealing the chaotic mess of the living room. Tattered drawings littered the carpet, glinting eerily under the flickering lights, their images twisted in agony. Jess's breath came in hard gasps as she looked around. "Did we do it?" she breathed, clutching her children's shoulders, holding them close against the terrifying energy that still buzzed in the air. But a new noise echoed through the silence. A slow, rhythmic tapping from above, a chilling reminder that the horror had only been momentarily stilled, still lurking, still hungry. Mia's eyes were transfixed upward, wide with fear. "Mama, what's that?" Jessica's heart plummeted. "Stay close," she whispered fiercely, her adrenaline spiking once more at the sound. They had opened the door, severed one bond, but had they awakened something else entirely? With every tick, the tapping grew louder, an ominous metronome counting down to something unseen, and then Jessica understood this was no end. They were just beginning to unravel something darker. What had they really disturbed? She had to know. The tapping thundered above them, a relentless drumbeat of impending doom, mocking the stillness that had once settled like a heavy cloak. Jessica's heart raced, each rhythmic stroke resonating like a dark bell tolling for their innocence. "Please, Mom, what is it?" Jake whimpered, his fragile voice cracking through the air thick with dread. Jessica's mind whirled. She had felt the shift in the atmosphere, a curtain pulled back to reveal something grotesque lurking just out of sight. "Just stay close," she urged again, wrapping her arms tightly around Mia and Jake. With hesitant steps, they backed toward the door, the shadows creeping along the walls, elongating like whispers reaching out for them. The space felt like a suffocating cage, the air thick with wet, cloying darkness. As they reached the threshold, an unsettling silence blanketed them, the tapping stopping as suddenly as it had begun. Jessica strained to listen, but only the oppressive thudding of her own heartbeat filled the air, a frantic metronome that perceived the crushing stillness as a signal of something imminent. Then, with a deafening crash, the ceiling groaned and shuddered. It felt as if the house itself were drawing a breath before unleashing a storm. Jessica shielded her children as dust cascaded from above, filling their lungs with a choking thick fog. "Run!" she shouted, urgency pounding in her voice. The hallway stretched out like a long, dark tunnel, beckoning them, but the flickering lights began to falter again, casting eerie silhouettes that darted in their peripheral vision. They sprinted down the hall, feet scrambling against the floorboards, the wooden layers beneath them creaking and groaning. But the house seemed to shift, swallowing their escape route, blocking their path ahead. Jessica barely registered the uncertainty etched across Mia's face, focusing instead on the darkened corner just ahead, a shift in shadows that beckoned her. "Mama!" Mia cried, her voice shaking with panic. Before Jessica could react, she felt the air grow colder as if a gust had swept through, chilling her very bones. A grotesque figure swirled from the darkness, taking form out of the very walls, an amalgamation of old memories, half-formed faces twisting and writhing in agony. Dirty skin, empty eyes, and mouths gaping wide, letting out a silent scream. The laughter surged back, filling the hall with a sinister chorus that echoed through Jess's mind. "It's all your fault." A voice shrieked, piercing the air with a venomous echo she recognized too well. The face of her sister emerged for an instant, contorted with grief and anger, forever tarnished in anguish. "No. Get away from us." Jessica lunged at it, desperation fueling her every movement. She had to shield Jake and Mia from the darkness. With a powerful shove, she pushed her children behind her, eyes wild as she faced the horror. "Stop!" she shouted, her voice reverberating off the walls. But the chilling figure stepped forward, elongating, the surrounding shadows threatening to wrap around them, ensnaring them in despair. Your past will never let you go, the entity whispered, a knowing smile creeping across its grotesque features. Suddenly, a long-forgotten memory pooled to the surface of Jessica's mind, an old family gathering, a drawing made on a weathered piece of paper, the one they had accidentally activated in their blind curiosity. Had they done this? The walls shook violently, rattling pictures, like a reminder of innocence traded for darkness. As Jessica began to understand, the floor beneath them began to tremble, splintering fractures appearing in the wood. With one last glance at the twisting horror, she barked, "We have to go now." They bolted deeper into the hall, but even as they ran, the shadows crept closer, threatening to consume them. The laughter followed them, growing deafening, taunting, as though the very house celebrated their flight. "Wake up! Wake up!" Jessica screamed, terrified that this nightmare would become their reality, but the laughter persisted, blurring with the pounding of her heart. Just as they neared a door at the end, a deafening crack echoed as the walls shifted, forming another barrier, sealing off their escape. What have they awakened? A deafening thud reverberated above them, a promise from the abyss that it would collect its due. "Don't look back!" Jessica yelled, squeezing her children's hands tighter than ever, anchoring them in this storm of terror, but as they pressed forward, a thought nagged at her. Had it followed them? Or were they still merely pawns in a game they didn't understand? The door loomed ahead, but did it lead to safety or something worse? What awaited them on the other side? Jessica's heart raced as they reached the door, her breath coming in panicked gasps. She could feel the walls vibrating, the malevolent force behind them tightening its grip. "Is it locked?" Mia whispered, her voice barely a tremor against the low rumble of chaos behind them. The door's knob was cold, unnatural. "I don't know," Jessica shouted. Her hands fumbled as the shadows clutched at her, visible fear separating her from the light outside. They had to escape this madness. The laughter grew louder, merging with the sound of the howling wind outside, a cruel joke tossed into the void as she twisted the knob. It held firm, taunting her just like everything else in this accursed house. "Mom!" Jake whimpered. "What do we do?" "Keep pushing." The desperation in her voice rang hollow, battling the rising tide of despair. With a sudden surge of strength, she threw her weight against the door, thrusting it again and again, but it wouldn't budge. A guttural roar echoed from the darkness, reverberating through the hallway like the growl of some ravenous beast, hungry for their fear. The darkness beside her morphed into grotesque shapes, hands reaching out, grasping for a hold. Jessica's instincts kicked in. She couldn't let them take her children. She turned away from the door, scanning their surroundings, desperate for another way out. "This way!" she shouted, pulling Mia and Jake with her, navigating through the shadows that felt like freezing fog wrapping around them. The hallway narrowed, the walls constricting as though they were alive, breathing with malice. The laughter followed them, wrapping around their throats, squeezing. "It likes to play," the entity hissed, the voices of those it had consumed mixing together in a haunting symphony. Jessica stumbled as her foot fell onto something soft and squishy underfoot. She dared to look down a child's toy, a stuffed bear with one eye missing, its once happy grin twisted into an expression of horror. How many had been lost in this cursed place? "Mom!" Mia cried, but Jessica pressed on, ignoring the toy's sad plea for attention. "Keep moving." She reached a staircase spiraling upward, the only way out she could see, though fear gripped her at the thought of going further into the belly of this monster. The shadows coiled around the stairs, swirling like a dark vortex trying to claim them. "Is it safe?" Mia asked, fear punctuating her voice. "Safe isn't a thing right now." Jessica gritted her teeth, urging her children to ascend. The laughter escalated, becoming desperate as they moved toward the stairs. Light flickered above, a beacon amid the chaos. With each step, the house groaned like a wounded animal. A floorboard creaked beneath them. Jessica felt the sinister whisper of the shadows, the weight of eyes watching from every dark corner. Once they reached the top, Jessica found herself in a narrow hallway, lined with closed doors. Doors that looked old, worn, and knowing. Which one? She panted, glancing over her shoulder. The shadows had followed them, twisting around the staircase, encroaching with malefic intent. Any of them could be an exit, Jake breathed, his eyes wide. But one door stood out, it seemed to pulse with life, a flickering light seeping around its edges. Go! Jessica urged, pushing her children ahead of her. But as they approached, the door rattled violently as if resisting them. Let us out! She screamed, her voice cracking, shaking in terror. The entity was near, whispering hateful secrets to her, taunting her memories of loss. What if it knew her darkest secrets? What if it chose them as its next victims? A deafening crack split the air, and the door flew open, revealing a blinding light that struck her like a knife. Run! But just as they dashed through, a chilling breath washed over them, an icy hand clasping Jessica's ankle, pulling her back as if the house wanted to keep her, to make her one with the shadows. Leave her! Mia screamed, tugging at her mom's arm until Jessica felt a surge of love and strength. She pulled free just in time, adrenaline rushing. They burst out into the unknown, but as Jessica turned to face the house and its waiting darkness, one question paralyzed her. What had they really escaped? The door slammed shut behind them, an echo of finality, as uncertainty loomed over their lives like an executioner's blade. What if the true nightmare had only just begun? The cold air hit them hard, a stark contrast to the oppressive warmth of the house. Jessica staggered, trying to catch her breath, her pulse roaring in her ears. Mia and Jake clutched her tightly, their faces pale and wide-eyed. They stood on the cracked pavement of the driveway, staring at the looming structure that had held them captive. Mom, what was that? Jake's voice trembled, the innocence of a child stark against the horrors they had just escaped. I don't know. Jessica whispered, her gaze fixed on the door they had just fled. The facade of the house seemed to shift before her eyes, shadows dancing across the surface as if mocking their escape. Before she could process what to do next, the door creaked open, just a sliver. The light from within spilled onto the ground, illuminating the darkness surrounding them. The laughter returned, a familiar sound now, wrapping around them like a sinister fog. Come back, it echoed sweetly, the tone laced with malice. Make it stop. Mia cried, burying her face in her mother's side. Stay close. Jessica ordered, her heart pounding against her ribs. She sensed an unspeakable threat lurking behind them, eager to reclaim what had eluded its grasp. Mom, we have to run. Jake tugged at her arm, his eyes locked on the door. Jessica realized the house had a strange magnetism, drawing their eyes as though it possessed life. They turned to flee, slipping away from the house that had sat ominously dormant moments before. But the moment they shifted toward the tree line of the woods, the atmosphere changed. A whispering wind rushed through the branches, beckoning them inward, offering refuge yet radiating a palpable foreboding. No, Jessica breathed, feeling the pull of the woods was almost as strong as the house's. We need to get to the car. The distant glimmer of the headlights flickered like a lighthouse beacon. It was only a short sprint, but every instinct in her screamed that they should not move toward it. Come on. Jessica urged, glancing back at the house. A flicker of movement caught her eye, a shape appeared in the doorway, shifting, growing, as if gathering strength. Run! She shouted, taking off with her children in tow. Their feet pounded against the ground, fear propelling them faster than they thought possible. The laughter grew louder, behind them, lateral howls threading in and out like a winding stream. As they approached the car, the headlights illuminated the scene, shadows danced with the flickering light, and the air turned thick with dread. Jessica fumbled for the door handle, her hands slick with sweat, heart racing as the entity's whispers invaded her thoughts. Get in! She shouted. The door swung open, and Jake and Mia jumped inside, panic-stricken. Before Jessica could duck in, she felt that icy grip again, wrapping around her wrist tight and unyielding. The darkness surged forward, wantonly hungry for her. No! She screamed, trying desperately to pull away, but the shadows had taken corporeal form, yanking her toward the house. She could see its door open wide, ready to pull her back into its cold embrace. "Mom!" Mia shrieked. With a howl of effort, Jessica grasped the doorframe, digging her nails into the metal, fighting against the dark force. But just as she thought she might win, she heard a sickening crack, the sound of bone breaking, and pain shot through her arm. "Don't leave me!" Jake's voice pierced through her agony, desperation lacing each word. Using every ounce of strength left, she yanked her arm free, breaking the connection. Stumbling back, she fell into the car, slamming the door behind her. The engine roared to life with a violent sputter, and she twisted the key, praying the house wouldn't reach them in time. As she backed away, she glanced in the rearview mirror. The house stood ominously still, but she felt it, the gaze of something insatiable, hungry. The sound of laughter faded into the wind, melding with the haunting rustle of the trees. But this was no victory. "Mom, are we safe now?" Jake asked, his voice tinged with hope. This house couldn't let them go without a fight, she thought. There was still an unsettling aura weighing heavy upon them, even as they drove away. Jessica's mind raced. They had escaped, but at what cost? Something was still with them, lurking in the periphery, waiting for the right moment to strike. Were they really free, or had they merely entered a new phase of their nightmare? As she stared through the windshield at the receding nightmare, a chill ran down her spine. What if the horror had only just begun? The car cried out as it screamed down the winding road, tires skidding slightly over the gravel. Jessica's knuckles were white as she gripped the steering wheel, her breath coming in sharp gasps. Mia sat huddled in the back seat, wide-eyed and trembling, while Jake stared straight ahead, his eyes unblinking. "Mom," Jake whispered, "do you think it followed us?" Jessica fought the urge to look in the rearview mirror again. She couldn't give it the satisfaction of knowing it had gotten to them. "No. We're okay. Just keep your eyes forward." But the volume of her own voice felt too loud, echoing in the confined space of the car, and she struggled to keep the tension from rising like a tidal wave. Each shadow flitting through the trees felt like a looming specter, waiting for the moment it could pounce. The winding road, flanked by thick, gnarled trees, seemed endless. Jessica's nerves were fraying, the deep-seated fear of abandonment clawing at her. "We just need to get home, we'll be safe there." The words hung in the air like a spell, laced with both desperation and a flicker of false hope. She wished she had told them they could go to the police. She wished she had anything but this road stretching ahead of them, mocking their escape. Suddenly, a cold wave swept through the car, causing Mia to shudder. "I feel strange," she mumbled, glancing at the window where the silhouettes of trees seemed to draw closer, as if they were pressing in on them. "It's just the cold, it'll pass," Jessica replied, though her heart raced at the thought that something was inside the car, lingering just out of sight. An oppressive weight filled the vehicle, making it difficult to breathe. As they rounded a bend, the road opened up to a clearing. A dilapidated gas station stood ahead, bathed in the sickly glow of a flickering neon sign, the letters barely legible. "Let us stop. Maybe there's someone here. We can ask for help," Jessica suggested, her heart pounding with alarm. The station had the feel of abandonment, yet it felt better than the uncertainty of the woods closing in behind them. They parked, and Jessica hesitated before stepping out into the heavy silence. The air was thick with tension, and every instinct screamed at her to get back in the car. "Stay close, both of you," she ordered, clenching her fists as Mia and Jake held onto her waist, their small bodies shaking beside her. Inside, the station was dim, stale air hanging thick like a shroud. Old posters plastered the walls, yellowed with age and peeling at the corners. She stepped to the counter, noting the dust lying thick across its surface. "Hello?" she called out, the sound echoing back to her, swallowed by the empty silence. She shifted her weight anxiously, glancing back at her children. The eerie weight of being watched slithered down her spine. A sudden noise, a dragging sound occurred from the back of the store. Jessica's heart thundered in her chest. "Hello?" she ventured again, her voice barely a whisper, and then laughter. Just like before, it slithered through the air, and this time it didn't fade. The very atmosphere shifted, heavy with an unnatural presence looming close. She turned sharply, searching for the source, but there was only darkness stretching in every direction. Mom Jake whined quietly, and she felt a surge of protective desperation wash over her. Suddenly, a figure appeared from the darkness, emerging not unlike a specter materializing in the night. A man unkempt and wild-eyed, his body seemed to dance around a flickering light. Jessica instinctively stepped backward, instinct kicking in. "What do you want?" she demanded. The man grinned, a wide, unsettling smile that seemed far too large for his face. "You shouldn't have come here," he rasped, gaze intense and wild. "You invited it, you know. You can't run from what you've called." Panic surged in Jessica's chest, and she grabbed her children. "Get back in the car!" she shouted, but the shadows seemed to thicken around them, and the very laughter that had chased them away from the house was now an echoing chorus surrounding them, walls closing in, suffocating. As she pulled the door open, a cold breeze washed over her, sharper than before, sending chilling fingers crawling along her spine. What had they brought with them from that house? The gas station stood still, an ominous sentinel under the inky night. "Mom!" Mia whimpered in the enveloping darkness, something whispered her name back. And it was hungry. Jessica staggered back, her heart racing as the reality of their situation settled like a weight on her chest. The man's unsettling grin only added to her panic as he stepped closer, darkness swirling around him. "You brought it with you," he whispered, his voice like a snake slithering through the dense air. "You can't escape what you've unleashed. Get away from us!" Jessica shouted, her shout echoing through the dimly lit station. She pulled her children tightly against her, instinctively shielding them from whatever evil was lurking just out of sight. The man's laughter rang hollow, merging with the echo of the shadows, swirling around them like a storm. The air crackled with tension, a tangible force that belied the horror they faced. "We have to go," Jessica urged, turning back to the exit. But as she did, the shadows surged forwards, deforming and twisting in a chaotic dance, whispering dark promises that tugged at her mind. "Run, now!" she screamed, pushing Jake and Mia towards the dimly lit door. The two children hurried out, fear etched on their faces. She followed them, her heart constricted with dread as she felt the laughter trailing behind them, wrapping around her like a snake tightening its grip. Outside, the night felt different, charged. The oppressive darkness morphed like shadows come to life. Jessica scrambled into the car, every instinct screaming for her to drive as far away as possible. "Get in!" she shouted, while peering nervously into the depths of the gas station, half expecting another figure to emerge. The engine roared to life, drowning out the lingering echoes of laughter still weaving through the air. Jessica cast one last glance in the rearview mirror as they pulled away, her heart quaking with fear. The gas station loomed, dark and foreboding, the light flickering as though trying to reveal hidden truths. What had they invited into their lives? They drove into the night, and the shadows sprinted alongside them, keeping up with their speed. No more jokes, no more sinister games. This was survival. The familiar roads felt foreign now, twisting and turning like the horror that had wrapped itself around their lives. Who knew where this nightmare would take them? Between sorrowful breaths, she felt the tension between them simmering. Mom Jake broke the silence, his voice trembling. "Is it really gone?" Jessica swallowed hard, the lump in her throat a dam to the flood of emotions coursing through her. I don't know," she admitted, her voice cracking. She felt weak, exposed. In that moment, sobs erupted from Mia, the sound echoing through the tight space. Jessica reached back to comfort her, even as the shadows loomed, threatening, still too close for comfort. "It's okay, honey. We're together, and that's what matters." But inside, a gnawing fear echoed that perhaps togetherness alone wouldn't be enough. The miles rolled by, trees becoming mere streaks of darkness as they sped through the labyrinth of night. Jessica's thoughts swirled. Their home was safe, wasn't it? If they made it back, would the shadows follow? As hope sparked in her weary heart, she caught a glimpse of headlights in the distance. A police car. Was there a chance for safety after all? Bursting with renewed resolve, she pressed the accelerator harder, flying towards the distant lights. But as they approached, the shapes before her sharpened, revealing another specter of a familiar nightmare. The police car was parked, empty, its lights flashing atop the vehicle, a summon of safety and horror intertwined. "Mom!" Jake gasped, eyes wide as he pointed at the figure beside it. "Look!" Jessica's heart plummeted. Standing there was Jason, the man who had brought darkness into their lives. The same smile, the same hollow eyes glinted as he beckoned, blending into the illuminated shadows. "I'm here to make sure you don't run away again." "No!" she shouted, turning the wheel hard, desperate to escape. No way would she let him claim her children. But as she swerved, the world spun dangerously, shadows closing, whispers of illusion wrapping around them tighter with each frantic breath. The tires screamed against asphalt, the world outside blurring until it became indistinguishable from the nightmares they had encountered. And just like that, time froze. The gas station vanished behind them, and the landscape morphed, sending them deeper into a darkness larger than any shadow they had faced. With Mia and Jake's frightened faces turning darker, Jessica felt the echoes of defiance stirring inside her. No entity, no menace could possess her children. They were more than just remnants of innocence, they were threads of light in her life, and she had to keep them woven tight. "Stay close!" she shouted, the urgency pulling her voice tight across the vast emptiness. She had to awaken the strength inside them, the courage she knew burned within, unquenchable against the approaching darkness. As she steered into the unknown, there was one certainty: fighting wasn't optional anymore. Their terror was manifesting into something tangible, ready to consume them whole unless they stood together. Jessica knew she wouldn't stop until the last breath, and somehow they would find their way home. Because this was only the beginning of a battle that would change everything. The night pressed thick against them, each heartbeat resonating with the shadows that now seemed to pursue them. But in that suffocating darkness, Jessica finally realized something: no matter the fear lurking in the corners, her love for her children would remain the beacon leading them home. The car throbbed with energy, and so did Jessica's resolve. The fight wasn't over, instead, it had just begun. And she wouldn't let them go without a sever. Heart racing, she navigated the terrifying road ahead, determined to pull them from the oppressing grasp of shadows that sought to claim all they had ever dreamed. And as she drove, fog rolled in thick, swirling behind them, echoing the promise: it wasn't over yet. Now was the time to take a stand. Don't just close this video and walk away. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss our next spine-chilling tale of horror. Smash the like button now to show your support and feed the algorithm. This is the moment to connect with the community that loves these stories. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. I want to hear it all, because your thoughts matter. And lastly, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans truly understand the power of supporting this channel.